Welcome to the History Law channel. You join us here today in the lovely St James's Park in central London. And it's another of our series about the royal parks. And this one is actually the oldest, dates back to 1603. Well, the actual land dates back a lot longer than that. So let's find out its history, shall we? Welcome to London. St James's Park is the oldest of the royal parks, and there are three palaces surrounding it. You've got Westminster, the Palace of Westminster, which is now the Houses of Parliament. You've got Buckingham Palace and St James's Palace. But you also had Whitehall Palace from around about the 1520s onwards. The area was once a marshy water meadow, and believe it or not, about 500 years ago, it was full of pigs grazing. In around about the 13th century, a leper hospital was founded, St James's Hospital, and that's where the area took its name from. It was in 1532 that King Henry VIII acquired the site because he wanted another deer park near to his palaces. Elizabeth I came to the throne and she indulged her love of pageantry and pomp, and she held fêtes of all kinds in the park. Her successor, James I, was the one who improved the drainage, controlled the water supply and laid it out as a park. The reason the area was a swampy, marshy wasteland was because of the River Tyburn that often flooded on its way to the Thames. It was, however, ideal for hunting deer, and that was a passionate pastime of kings and queens for centuries. At the time, up until 1512, the royal court was actually at the Palace of Westminster, but a fire in the royal apartments made Henry VIII move to Whitehall Palace in the adjacent road. It was in 1532 he acquired the area and decided to have a deer park conveniently built nearby. So he acquired the land of St James's Hospital, put a fence around it and built a hunting lodge that later became St James's Palace, that opened in 1536. The park stayed largely the same until around 1603 when James I became king. The first thing he ordered was to drain the area and landscape the park. Near to where Buckingham Palace now stands was a large pool that was known as Rosamond's Pond, and towards the east there were several smaller ponds and islands, and these were used for luring birds so they could be shot for the royal table. King James also kept a collection of animals in the park, and these included elephants, camels, llamas, and in the lakes, crocodiles. Birdcage Walk had a selection of exotic birds in the aviaries along there, and King James created lots of flower gardens too. Now there are two islands, or there used to be two islands in the lake here. One was the Duck Island up there, which is no longer an island because it's actually joined to the mainland, and the other one is at the western end of the park, which is imaginatively called West Island. But there you are. It's actually been left as a nature reserve, and humans very rarely visit the island. So rarely, in fact, that nobody actually noticed that someone was living there in 2007. This chap was a fellow called Robert James Moore. He was American and he was obsessed with the royal family. He would send various things to Her Majesty the Queen, including a document that was 600 pages long and also, sadly, some obscene photographs. We do believe the Queen never actually saw any of these. They were intercepted before she could actually lay eyes on them. Those letters stopped in 2008 and nobody thought any more about it. But in 2011, one of the park keepers was actually going across the island to do some maintenance work, and they discovered the corpse. The corpse had been there for at least 3 years. The autopsy found it was our friend Mr. Moore, and he had been dead since about 2008. He died of natural causes. Very macabre indeed. When Charles II became king in 1660, he'd been exiled in France after the English Civil War, and he was impressed by the elaborate gardens that belonged to the French royal family. So when he returned home, he ordered the redesign of St James's. The park was probably created by a French landscaper called André Mollet, and the centrepiece would be a canal, 2,560 feet long by approximately 125 feet wide. Each side would have avenues of trees. And the park would be open to the public for the first time. And it was here that Charles II entertained guests and court favourites such as his mistress Nell Gwyn. In 1664, the Russian ambassador presented a pair of pelicans to the king, and there have been pelicans in the park ever since. During the 18th century there were few changes, but one major change was at the east end of the canal that was filled in to become Horse Guards Parade. In 1761, King George III purchased a small house at the western end of St James's Park called Buckingham House. We know it now as the more extended Buckingham Palace. Now I do have a little confession to make to you, and that is St James's is my favourite park in London, without a doubt. And one of the main reasons it's my favourite is simply because of that spectacular view behind me. In fact, let me step out the way so you can admire it for yourself. In the 1820s, the park got another great makeover, and it was remodelled by John Nash, who also remodelled Buckingham Palace. He also designed Clarence House and what we now call Lancaster House as well, along with Regent Street and Regent's Park. He took away the formal avenues of trees and planted more shrubberies and more flowers, and also had more winding and elaborate paths created. The park we see today is very much still in Nash's design, and only small changes have happened in recent years. More recently, in 2004, the shrubberies were restored and a new restaurant opened, which was designed to blend in with a nice romantic landscape that Nash had in mind. Thank you very much for watching. A very noisy moorhen in the background there. We do hope you enjoy these videos, and if you do, please subscribe. If you want to know when they're uploaded, there's a notification bell just down below. If you want to see what we do outside of these videos, then please go to historylord.co.uk, see about one of my walking tours of London. My usual walking tour does include St James's Park as well. And if you want to see what James does outside of these videos, please have a look down below at this description for his YouTube channel, which is called Last Line Films. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you very soon indeed. Take care indeed. Take care indeed.